I'm leaving Toronto, where Cuba is mostly a headline. Politics, opinion, simple explanations. I've been there before. I've followed the conversations. Cuba is not perfect, but it causes you to take a second look. And I know one thing, it's never as simple as people make it sound. I had to connect through Panama to get here. Canadian Airlines aren't flying direct right now, not because Cuba shut the door, but because the numbers don't work for the airlines. You start to feel it the moment you land in Havana. Things move differently here. Slower, more restricted. Not chaotic, just constrained. Then there's Veradero. Resorts, beaches, tourists. A version of Cuba that feels easy, comfortable, familiar. This is what most visitors see, and for a lot of people, it's where the story ends. Step outside that tourist bubble and you start to see something else. Cardenas feels quieter, more local. This is closer to everyday life, less polished, and more real. In places like Cantrast, the strain becomes harder to ignore. You see it in the transportation, in infrastructure, in the way daily life depends on things arriving that don't always arrive. When supply chains get disrupted here, it doesn't just slow things down. It changes how people live. Back in Havana, it's all right in front of you. Buildings worn down by time, lines for basic goods in the bank, shortages that people have learned to work around. There's no denying it. Part of the answer goes back decades. The U.S. embargo has shaped this country for over 60 years. And in more recent years, under the current U.S. administration, restrictions were tightened. Restrictions on who Cuba can trade with, threats to block or seize fuel routed for Cuban ports, threats to their very sovereignty. Necessities like fuel tell the story. Cuba relies on shipments from trade partners like Russia, Mexico, and Venezuela. And when those shipments are delayed, the Cuban people feel it. Food distribution slows, garbage pickup stops, electrical generation lags. Every aspect of life is affected. And then there's healthcare. It's universal, free at the point of access. Medical school is free as well, so doctors don't graduate with student debt. Cuba has the highest number of doctors per capita in the world, but resources are limited. There are ongoing shortages of medicine, equipment, even basic supplies. So access is there, but what's available can vary. Donations carried in suitcases are welcomed, however, it's just a drop in the bucket. What really sets Cuba apart is that it sends its doctors abroad. Cuban medical teams work all over the world. Disaster relief, underserved areas, places that need support. That program brings in revenue for Cuba. Supporters call it solidarity, exporting healthcare to the world. Critics say doctors only receive a fraction of what the host countries pay. And politically, it goes even further. Figures like Marco Rubio have pushed to pressure other countries to reject these programs. Supporters of Cuba see that as interference, affecting not just Cuba's sovereignty, but the choices of these other nations benefiting from the program. So even this isn't simple. It's a system that produces a huge number of doctors, cares for its population, and relies on those same doctors as part of its economy, all while operating under pressure from the outside forces. Education here is also free. Cuba boasts a higher literacy rate than the United States. However, power blackouts are affecting schools and universities, some staying closed in these times of uncertainty. High literacy and free university didn't happen by accident. It is the design to have an educated society. Cuba leads the world in gender parity for innovation, with women inventors accounting for 53% of international patents. 53% of engineers in Cuba are women. Cuba's National Assembly has women holding 56% of the seats, making it the second highest in the world. 53% of judges in Cuba are women. Life expectancy in Cuba is 78.6 years. Infant mortality lower than the global average, despite medical equipment shortages. But beyond the statistics, what stands out most is the people. The creativity, the way people adapt, improvise, and keep going. There is a resilience that exists alongside the struggle. You hear people say Cubans don't have a say in their politics, as if they're passive onlookers in their own country. But step inside Cuba and you'll see people voting in their neighborhoods, choosing who represents them at their municipal assemblies, and using that vote to show approval or dissent. Cubans participate through mass organizations, unions, student groups, neighborhood committees, where they debate housing, schools, healthcare, and community problems, then push those concerns through the system. They voted in a national referendum on the family code and by a wide margin supported it, including provisions that allow same-sex couples to marry. That yes vote wasn't given, it was claimed, a clear moment when ordinary Cubans shaped the law of the land. So no, Cubans are not voiceless. They're full of voices, calling meetings, organizing, voting, abstaining, and demanding change. Cuba isn't a simple story. It's not just one system or a policy. There are real internal challenges here, inefficiencies, frustrations, limitations. But there's also a country that's been under economic pressure for generations. If you really want to understand Cuba, you have to look at all of it, not just the parts that fit a narrative, but the full picture. Ernest Hemingway once said, "I did not care what it was all about. All I wanted to know was how to live in it." Maybe if you found out how to live in it, you learned from that what it was all about.